Lajrat Circle police fired 2 rounds to disperse the crowd, which attempted to stall road traffic in response to a call by the ASU and the AGSP as part of their resumed agitation on the foreigners issue. An attempt was also made to burn another bridge near Mangaldol, a subdivisional town in Darrang district. Assam blockade. One person was killed when police opened fire to disperse a violent crowd of pickets who attacked a convoy of trucks Beloguri, near Nogong town on Monday afternoon, an official spokesperson said. Police fired 2 rounds to disperse the crowd, which attempted to stall road traffic in response to a call by the ASU and the AGSP as part of their resumed agitation on the foreigners issue. Police also fired at a crowd at Besria near Tezpur, but nobody was injured. Curfew has been imposed on both towns. A wooden bridge between Nimataighhat and Jorhat in Sibsagar district was set on fire by miscreants. An attempt was also made to burn another bridge near Mangaldol, a subdivisional town in Darrang district. KPCC in turmoil. The Congress in Kerala is now certain to defy the party working committee and to split with the High Command. While senior leaders of the party in the state maintained an eloquent silence over the working committee's rejection of the KPCC's move for an alliance-wide Congress, the rank and file are already restive, and several mid-level leaders, including those of the youth and student wings, have raised the banner of revolt. The state leadership is reportedly convinced that the working committee has succumbed to outside pressure, and that decision was the result of a plot hatched in Bombay. OPEC Bank. OPEC is seriously considering setting up a bank for a large-scale investment and aid program in third world countries. The idea of such a venture has been mooted by Algeria and Venezuela. A final decision is expected to be taken at the next meeting of the heads of state of OPEC countries. The date and venue for the proposed summit is expected to be fixed at the OPEC All Ministers meeting scheduled to be held in Abu Dhabi next month. Follow the signs. Extent of Omicron challenge isn't clear as yet. COVID-appropriate behavior, signs and vaccines remain the best recourse. Early reports from South Africa do indicate that though highly transmissible, Omicron's symptoms are relatively mild, but this is early days and the guard cannot be lowered. Countries around the world have begun taking precautionary measures against the Omicron variant of the novel coronavirus. The detection of this variant by South African medical authorities and their alacrity in passing on information about the mutants on the pathogen's spike protein have given governments precious time to take safeguards. Responses have been far swifter compared to earlier this year, when the Delta variant began to make its presence felt. There are indications that the world has learnt valuable lessons in preparedness from the nearly 2-year-long confrontation with the virus. Even then, the variant has dispersed to several countries, and authorities in different parts of the world are showing signs of panic. Some of the alarm is understandable. But given that the data about the variant doesn't yet convey the magnitude of the threat it poses, the best recourse would be to remain unflinching about COVID protocols while the scientists and medical experts do their job. Early reports from South Africa do indicate that though highly transmissible, Omicron's symptoms are relatively mild, but this is early days and the guard cannot be lowered. The knowledge on whether those infected with the new variant had comorbidities or age-related infirmities is scanty. There is anecdotal evidence of breakthrough infections caused by Omicron. But even Delta has shown that it can infect the vaccinated, though in such cases, it rarely becomes virulent. December 2021 is a distance from March 2020. Close to 50% of the adult population in the country has received both shots of the vaccine, and serosurveys have indicated that a high proportion of Indians have already been exposed to the virus. The extent of immunity this will confer against the new variant isn't known. So, while authorities have done well to bolster surveillance at airports, they must also make sure that there is no let-up in the general levels of testing and contact tracing. COVID control authorities in India would, therefore, do well to emulate their counterparts in South Africa and other parts of the world where Omicron has found its way, with respect to genome tracing. Capital gains. Investments are on the rise, but low private consumption is a cause of concern. Government must step up expenditure. The biggest worry is the weak growth in private consumption expenditure. According to the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, India's gross domestic product grew by 8.4% in the second quarter of the current financial year. In absolute terms, at 35.74 lakh rupees crore, India's Q2 GDP crossed the pre-COVID level of 35.62 lakh rupees crore in Q2 of 2019 to 2020. On the expenditure side, what is most promising is the 11% growth in gross fixed capital formation, GFCF, a sharp recovery after a 9% contraction in the same quarter last year. The GFCF is the marker of investments in the economy, and high growth in investments suggests businesses are looking favorably at India's growth prospects. In fact, in absolute terms, the investments in Q2 are the highest of any Q2 in the past 5 years. However, there are still several areas of concern. The biggest worry is the weak growth in private consumption expenditure. This is the biggest engine of GDP growth in India, and after contracting by over 11% in Q2 last year, it has grown by just 8.6% this year. As a result, private expenditure in Q2 is still well below the 2019 to 2020 level. This is significant because growth in investments cannot be sustained without the growth in private consumption expenditure. Typically, in times of such a mismatch, the government steps up its expenditure to boost overall GDP. But in Q2 this year, the government's expenditure was quite low. After contracting by 24% in Q2 last year, it has risen by just 8.7% this year. As a result, the government's quarterly spending in current Q2 was the lowest in any Q2 of the past 5 years. On the supply side too, there are areas of concern. On the face of it, the growth rates of the gross value added, GVA, by different sectors look decent: construction by 7.5%, trade and hotels etc. by 8.2%, and financial services by 7.8%. But most of these sectors contracted much more heavily in Q2 of last year. As a result, despite decent GVA growth rates, in absolute terms, many of them are below the levels set in pre-COVID years. Overall, the latest data points to a fledgling economic recovery. While investment growth is heartening, private spending is a cause of concern. Moreover, the fiscally conservative approach of the government not only goes against the idea of a counter-cyclical fiscal policy that even its most recent chief economic advisor, Krishnamurthy Subramanian, argued repeatedly, but also undermines the broader economic recovery. As things stand, India's GDP in the first half of the year is still 4.5% below the GDP in the first half of 2019 to 2020. With the threat of another virus variant in the air, the government must step up its expenditure to ensure that the growth in investment is sustained. Riding consumption and farm uptick, economy grows at 8.4% in second quarter. In the last quarter, April to June, the economy saw record growth of 20.1% compared with the corresponding period last year, when a national lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic had nearly halted all economic activities. The Reserve Bank of India had earlier projected the real GDP growth rate for July to September at 7.9%. Representational image. The Indian economy clocked a healthy growth rate of 8.4% in July to September, the second quarter of financial year 2021 to 2022, primarily on the back of a low base, but aided by increased vaccination and an uptick in agriculture, public administration and defense services sectors, data released Tuesday by the National Statistical Office showed. The RBI had projected a growth rate of 7.9% in Q2 this year. In absolute terms, the GDP at constant prices at 35.73 lakh rupees crore was 0.33% higher than the pre-pandemic levels of Q2 2019 to 2020, indicating the economy has recovered the ground lost due to COVID-19. Barring construction, all industry segments posted a higher output level than Q2 2019 to 2020. The Q2 data showed improved traction for high-contact activities, such as restaurant and hotels, which pushed up the services sector, and improvement in private consumption, as reflected in the 8.64% growth in private final consumption expenditure. The 1.5% rise in gross fixed capital formation, an indicator of investments, over July to September in the pre-pandemic year 2019 to 2020 was also a silver lining. While higher vaccine coverage and fuel duty cuts are likely to boost confidence and spur demand, economists flagged concerns over a durable recovery once the base effect starts waning in the third quarter onward, rising higher prices and uncertainty due to the new COVID variant Omicron hurting global recovery. Chief Economic Advisor K.V. Subramanian, however, said India is expected to log double-digit growth in 2021 to 2022, aided by rising demand and a robust banking sector. He said seminal second-generation reforms would help the country grow over 7% this decade. The economy had posted a contraction of 7.4% in July to September a year ago, when it had entered technical recession after contracting for 2 consecutive quarters. It had jumped 20.1% in April to June this year against a 24.4% contraction in Q1 2020 to 2021. Government final consumption expenditure in July to September this year at 3.61 lakh rupees crore was 8.73% higher than 3.32 lakh rupees crore in Q2 last year, but was significantly lower than 4.34 lakh rupees crore in Q2 2019 to 2020. While private consumption at 19.48 lakh rupees crore was 8.64% higher than 17.93 lakh rupees crore in Q2 last year, it still did not reach the pre-pandemic level of 20.19 lakh rupees crore in Q2 2019 to 2020. Gross fixed capital formation, an indicator of investments, at 11.42 lakh rupees crore was higher compared with 11.25 lakh rupees crore in Q2 2019 to 2020, pre-pandemic year, and 10.29 lakh rupees crore in Q2 2020 to 2021. A sharp jump was seen in valuables, which includes assets such as works of art, precious metals, and jewelry. Those with a store value also contributed to a higher growth rate. It stood at 1.19 lakh rupees crore in July to September compared with 42,253 crore rupees in Q2 last year and 44,242 crore rupees in Q2 2019 to 2020. At current prices or in nominal terms, the GDP in absolute terms increased due to higher wholesale price inflation to 55.54 lakh rupees crore in July to September, compared with the pre-COVID level of 49.42 lakh rupees crore. While the Q2 floor Y20 to 2 absolute level of real GDP reverted mildly above the pre-COVID level of Q2 floor Y20 to 0, the disaggregated data for Q2 floor Y20 to 2 is far from convincing, with considerable lags in private and government consumption expenditure being absorbed by a sharp rise in valuables relative to the pre-COVID level of Q2 floor Y20 to 0. The 1.5% rise in gross fixed capital formation in Q2 floor Y20 to 2 relative to Q2 floor Y20 to 0 appears to be the lone silver lining, Aditi Nair, chief economist, ICRA, said. When compared with pre-COVID levels of 2019 to 2020, all sectors recorded a higher gross value added, GVA, output except construction, trade, hotels, transport, communication and services related to broadcasting, and financial, real estate, and professional services. The GVA, it is GDP minus net product taxes, and reflects growth in supply, grew 8.5% in July to September against a contraction of 7.3% in the Q2 2020 to 2021. The GDP in nominal terms, which factors in inflation, grew by 17.5% in July to September as against the 4.4% contraction last year. The manufacturing sector posted a growth of 5.5% in July to September as against the 1.5% contraction in the same period last year. The construction sector too grew by 7.5% as against the 7.2% contraction last year. Agricultural growth increased to 4.5% in the July to September quarter from 3.5% last year, while electricity, gas, water supply, and other utility services grew 8.9% as against 2.3% last year. In the services sector, the trade, hotels, transport sector grew at 8.2% in July to September as against a sharp 16.1% contraction last year. Going ahead, The vaccination rate is seen as supportive even as inflationary concerns loom over GDP growth, posing a challenge for monetary policy going ahead. As things stand now, Indra believes Indian economy is on a path of recovery suitably aided by the progress achieved on the vaccination front. Yet, Indra believes economic recovery will require both fiscal and monetary policy support in the near term to ensure that recovery continues despite the threat posed by the new COVID-19 variant Omicron, Sunil Kumar Sinha, principal economist, India Ratings and Research said. Siddhartha Sanyal, chief economist and head of research, Bandhan Bank, said, overall, GDP growth looks set for an 8 to 9% range in floor Y22. Several high-frequency indicators have recorded decent uptick in recent months. Nevertheless, indices such as consumer confidence are still 25 to 30% lower than their pre-COVID levels. Despite inflationary concerns in recent months, one expects policymakers to stay broadly growth supportive, especially given the fresh concerns triggered by the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. The uptick in exports in Q2 was encouraging. However, going ahead this will remain contingent upon global recovery. Explained, is nuclear energy good for the climate? Supporters of nuclear power say it can help wean us off polluting fossil fuels. But can it really help save the climate? Nuclear power is expensive, especially when follow-up costs are taken into account. Supporters of nuclear energy say it can help us wean our economies off polluting fossil fuels. No surprise, it's a heated issue. But what about the facts? Can nuclear power really help save the climate? The latest figures on global carbon dioxide emissions call into question the world's efforts to tackle the climate crisis. CO2 emissions are set to soar 4.9% in 2021 compared with the previous year, according to a study published earlier this month by the Global Carbon Project, GCP, a group of scientists that track emissions. In 2020, emissions dropped 5.4% due to the COVID-19 pandemic and associated lockdowns. Most observers expected a rebound this year, but not to such an extent. The energy sector continues to be the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, with a share of 40% and rising. But what about nuclear? Supporters of the controversial energy source say it's a climate-friendly way to generate electricity. At the very least, it's something we could use until we are able to develop comprehensive alternatives. In recent weeks, particularly during the COP26 climate summit, advocates have been creating a stir online with statements like if you are against nuclear energy, you are against climate protection and nuclear energy is about to make a comeback. But is there anything to it? Is nuclear power a zero-emissions energy source? No. Nuclear energy is also responsible for greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, no energy source is completely free of emissions, but more on that later. When it comes to nuclear, uranium extraction, transport, and processing produces emissions. The long and complex construction process of nuclear power plants also releases CO2, as does the demolition of decommissioned sites. And, last but not least, nuclear waste also has to be transported and stored under strict conditions. Here, too, emissions must be taken into account. And yet, interest groups claim nuclear energy is emission-free. Among them is Austrian consulting firm ENCO. In late 2020, it released a study prepared for the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy that looked favorably at the possible future role of nuclear in the Netherlands. The main factors for its choice were reliability and security of supply, with no CO2 emission, it read. ENCO was founded by experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency, and it regularly works with stakeholders in the nuclear sector, so it's not entirely free of vested interests. At COP26, Environmental Initiative Scientists for Future, S4 Floor, presented a paper on nuclear energy and the climate. The group came to a very different conclusion. Taking into account the current overall energy system, nuclear energy is by no means CO2 neutral, they said. Ben Vila of the Technical University of Berlin, one of the report's authors, told DW that proponents of nuclear energy fail to take into account many factors, including those sources of emissions outlined above. All the studies reviewed by DW said the same thing: nuclear power is not emissions-free. How much CO2 does nuclear power produce? Results vary significantly, depending on whether we only consider the process of electricity generation or take into account the entire life cycle of a nuclear power plant. A report released in 2014 by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, for example, estimated a range of 3.7 to 110 grams of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt-hour, kWh. It's long been assumed that nuclear plants generate an average of 66 grams of CO2 kWh, though Wheeler believes the actual figure is much higher. New power plants, for example, generate more CO2 during construction than those built in previous decades, due to stricter safety regulations. Studies that include the entire life cycle of nuclear power plants, from uranium extraction to nuclear waste storage, are rare, with some researchers pointing out that data is still lacking. In one life cycle study, the Netherlands-based World Information Service on Energy, WISE, calculated that nuclear plants produce 117 grams of CO2 emissions per kilowatt-hour. It should be noted, however, that WISE is an anti-nuclear group, so is not entirely unbiased. However, other studies have come up with similar results when considering entire life cycles. Mark Z. Jacobson, director of the Atmosphere Energy Program at California's Stanford University, calculated a climate cost of 68 to 180 grams of CO2 kWh, depending on the electricity mix used in uranium production and other variables. How climate-friendly is nuclear compared to other energies? If the entire life cycle of a nuclear plant is included in the calculation, nuclear energy certainly comes out ahead of fossil fuels like coal or natural gas. But the picture is drastically different when compared with renewable energy. According to new, but still unpublished data from the State-run German Environment Agency, UBA, as well as the WISE figures, nuclear power releases 3.5 times more CO2 per kilowatt-hour than photovoltaic solar panel systems. Compared with onshore wind power, that figure jumps to 13 times more CO2. When up against electricity from hydropower installations, nuclear generates 29 times more carbon. Could we rely on nuclear energy to help stop global warming? Around the world, nuclear energy representatives, as well as some politicians, have called for the expansion of atomic power. In Germany, for example, the right-wing populist AfD party has backed nuclear power plants, calling them modern and clean. The AfD has called for a return to the energy source, which Germany has pledged to phase out completely by the end of 2022. Other countries have also supported plans to build new nuclear plants, arguing that the energy sector will be even more damaging for the climate without it. But Wheeler from Berlin's Technical University, along with numerous other energy experts, takes a different view. The contribution of nuclear energy is viewed too optimistically, he said. In reality, power plant construction times are too long and the costs too high to have a noticeable effect on climate change. It takes too long for nuclear energy to become available. Michael Schneider, author of the World Nuclear Industry Status Report, agrees. Nuclear power plants are about 4 times as expensive as wind or solar, and take 5 times as long to build, he said. When you factor it all in, you're looking at 15 to 20 years of lead time for a new nuclear plant. He pointed out that the world needed to get greenhouse gases under control within a decade. And in the next 10 years, nuclear power won't be able to make a significant contribution, added Schneider. Nuclear power is not being considered at the current time as one of the key global solutions to climate change, said Anthony Frogat, Deputy Director of the Environment and Society Programme at the International Affairs think tank Chatham House in London. He said a combination of excessive costs, environmental consequences, and lack of public support were all arguments against nuclear power. Nuclear funding could go toward renewables. Due to the high costs associated with nuclear energy, it also blocks important financial resources that could instead be used to develop renewable energy, said Jan Haverkamp, a nuclear expert and activist with environment NGO Greenpeace in the Netherlands. Those renewables would provide more energy that is both faster and cheaper than nuclear, he said. Every dollar invested in nuclear energy is therefore a dollar diverted from true urgent climate action. In that sense, nuclear power is not climate friendly, he said. In addition, nuclear energy itself has been affected by climate change. During the world's increasingly hot summers, several nuclear power plants have already had to be temporarily shut down or taken off the grid. Power plants depend on nearby water sources to cool their reactors, and with many rivers drying up, those sources of water are no longer guaranteed. The much-wanted renaissance of nuclear power is anything but when all the facts are taken into consideration, Michael Schneider told DW. He said the nuclear industry has been shrinking for years. In the last 20 years, 95 nuclear power plants have gone online and 98 have been shut down. If you take China out of the equation, the number of nuclear power plants has shrunk by 50 reactors in the last 2 decades, Schneider added. The nuclear industry is not thriving.